This is a walk-around video of my 1987 Mazda RX-7. It's prepared for SCCA Club Racing in the ITS Improved Touring S or STL Super Touring Light classes. The paint is in mostly very good condition. The car was originally built in 1999 by RP Performance. They took someone's regular street car and converted it into a race car in 1999. The roll cage was built by Mitch Piper of Piper Performance. That's one of the main reasons I got the car. It has an awesome roll cage. The car was raced in the DC region most of its life. It went away for a few years, and then I bought it in 2012 from a guy in Florida and brought it back to DC. I just want to point out, this is probably the most significant body damage on the car, just the back right behind the rear wheel. Must have been tagged by another car here. Little scuff mark and some indentation. I don't think it's significant enough to fix considering it's a race car. Like I was saying, I bought it in 2012. I replaced most of the mechanical items in the car. Starting at the back, I did the rear differential. It has 512 gears at the back and a torsion and limited slip. The transmission has the favorable fifth gear from a GTU S, so it's a slightly lower ratio in fifth, less of an overdrive. Engine fully rebuilt, replaced rotor housings, rotors and eccentric shaft were sent away and balanced. Engine was tuned, Microtech ECU was added. It's tuned to 9,000 RPM. Did some bearing improvements, improved bearings with better oil passages to support higher RPM. The whole suspension's been replaced. It's Coney shocks front and rear. Replaced the shock strut tubes up front with a product from AWR. It's a full coilover suspension. Camber plates up front, big thick roll bar up front. Car, like most race cars, has some racer tape on it. This has been on here a few years and it's holding up pretty well. There's some around the windshield, as well as covering up little items like where the side mirrors used to be, or some spots where the windshield washer fluid sprayers used to be. There's also some racer tape up on the front bumper. There's a little scuff mark here from some contact. Now let's take a look at the front bumper. It's probably where most of the wear is, cosmetic wear at least on the car. If you get up close, you can see little rock chips from gravel traps and stuff. All right, let's take a look inside the car. So my favorite feature of this car is the roll cage. It's a really nicely made cage from Piper Performance. I think it's one of the first ones they did back in the day, and you can look like all of the welds are like perfect. It's a really nicely built cage, big, strong structure around the driver here. And the driver door is hollowed out to make room for it, also letting you legally remove the glass, lightening it up a bit. The cage is also tucked up nice and tight to the roof. I'm super tall, so that meant that I could comfortably fit in this car. The top of the seat is like, let's see, the top of the seat is way below the, I've got big hands. So the top of the seat is way below the ceiling, probably a good 10 inches, probably 6 inches below that roll bar. Big cross bracing there. Sorry, getting a little too close and out of focus there. Let's see, inside, kill switch. Gauges in the dash are oil temperature, oil pressure, water temperature. We've got a big tachometer, When it's off, for some reason, it sits at 1500 RPM, so the car's obviously not running right now. Let's see, the fire button is here for a fire bottle, which is mounted down there. It's also a handheld fire extinguisher. There's a cool suit cooler. It does get hot in here in the summer. Switches on the front do fuel pumps, windshield wipers. They turn on the cool suit, and then one is for a DC 12 volt battery, and then there's also an unused switch in there right now. This is a brake bias valve to control brake pressure front to rear. Big rear view mirrors up top. Kirky aluminum race seat, 5-point harnesses. The car just passed tech last weekend for a SCCA annual. So it is ready to go racing. Looking back, out the back, you can see more roll bar, roll cage. Racing steering wheel that is detachable. I rarely ever detach it though. All right, now let's go under the hood. It's a 13B stock rotary engine. The main thing to upgrade on these is the cooling. So I've got a really big radiator here from ISC Racing, as well as a heat exchanger down there. And then underneath, under this panel, is a Mazda factory oil cooler, which looks just like this spare one I have here. Some homemade insulation over here just to try and totally block off the headers from the intake, because you don't want to keep the heat from that header off the intake. We've done pretty much everything you can do to the engine. There's not a whole lot you can do to the internals legally aside from give it fresh rotor housings and a fresh rebuild. The rotors and eccentric shaft have been balanced, and the engine has been tuned by Speed One in Allentown, Pennsylvania. See the tops of the shocks. And that's about it. All right, let's take a look in the back of the car. So you can see the fuel cell. You can also see a lot of the roll cage back here. The roll cage is really the main reason I bought this car originally. It was done by Piper Performance. It's a really extensive six-point cage. Let me open up the cover over the fuel cell. An ATL cell here. I've got the fuel test port here for SCCA rules. This is a dipstick. This is how I check the fuel. It's a very simple system, never goes wrong. Just a stick, and then I've got some references on the top panel to know how many gallons I've got, and that way I can always make sure I come in off the track at just over minimum weight. And lastly, I've got a lot of spare parts for this car, like a spare oil cooler here from Mazda, spare brand new front and rear brake pads, brand new brake calipers for the front, the good Mazda 4-piston calipers, spare rear caliper. As far as brake rotor goes, I've got at least 4 spare brand new fronts and at least 2 brand new rears. I've got some used fenders and doors, spare brand new axle for the rear, rain tires, 2 sets of dry tires. I'll detail a lot of that in the gallery as well. Thanks for looking. All right, let's do a quick cold start video of the 87 RX-7. Engine is totally cold right now. Touching the headers. Also, we can look in the dash and see that the gauges, oil and water, are down as low as they go. So just turn the kill switch on, and turn the key. When you turn the key, you'll see the ECU lights up down there. Fuel pumps are on and running.